You were taught that the wall in front of you is the reason you stopped. It is going to be the reason you move. Sit with that for a second, because everything you've absorbed about setbacks runs the other way. The story you were handed is simple, and it feels true. The work was going fine until the obstacle arrived, and then the obstacle ended it. Launch that slipped. The client who walked. The body that broke down the week before, it mattered. In that story, the obstacle is the villain. The interruption, the thing that happened to you. And so you wait for it to clear. You treat the wall as a stop sign. You stand in front of it, and you call that standing patience. But you are building something. That is the fact that changes all of this. A man who is building is not a spectator to his conditions. He is in a relationship with them, and the obstacle is not the end of that relationship. It is the next thing it demands of him. The wall is not telling you to stop. It is telling you where to cut. Understand what this is and what it is not. This is not motivation. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings arrive late and leave early. This is a method, a discipline, cold and repeatable, that a man once used to run an empire that was actively falling apart around him. Plague in the streets, war on the frontier, betrayal in his own ranks. He did not survive that by being inspired. He survived it by turning a single thought over and over until it became a reflex. That thought is what you're going to build tonight. Not a slogan to feel, a move to make, starting with the one already in your way. Here is where most men lose, and it is worth being precise about it, because the loss doesn't happen where they think it does. Something happens. The deal collapses, the numbers come back wrong, the person you counted on doesn't show. That is the event. It is a fact in the world. It has a size, a shape, a set of consequences, and not 1 ounce more. And then, in the same instant, almost too fast to catch, you supply something else. You supply the verdict. This is a disaster. This always happens to me. I should have known. It's over. Watch what you just did. You took a neutral piece of data and you wrapped it in a story, and the story is heavier than the event. The event cost you a client. The story costs you the next 3 days, your sleep, your nerve, the sharpness you needed to actually respond. The setback was survivable. Your commentary on the setback is what's burying you. This is the reframe the whole method turns on, so slow down here. Between what happens to you and what you do about it, there is a gap. It is narrow. Sometimes it is only a breath wide. But it exists, and it is the one piece of territory you actually own. You do not own the market. You do not own other men's choices, or the timing, or the odds. You own the gap. Marcus Aurelius put the surgical version of it plainly. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. Read that carefully, because it is easy to turn it into a lie. He is not saying nothing can touch you. He lost most of his children. He knew exactly what could touch a man. He is saying something narrower and harder. That the injury and your verdict on the injury are two separate things, and the second one is yours. The obstacle was never the problem. The problem was the story you told about it before you'd done a single thing. So here is the sentence. I'm going to give it to you slowly because it has been worn smooth by overuse, and you need to hear it as the strange, precise claim it actually is. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in Book 5 of the Meditations, the mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Read it again. The impediment to action advances action. That is not comfort. That is not a man patting you on the back and telling you it'll all work out. That is an engineering claim about how a certain kind of mind operates. He is not saying the obstacle is tolerable. He is not saying you'll get past it eventually. He is saying the obstacle gets consumed. Taken in, converted, turned into the very fuel of the next move. What stood in your way becomes the way forward. Not around the block, but through the material of the block itself. Think about what converts to its own purposes means for a man who builds. It means nothing that arrives is wasted, because a builder does not sort his materials into good and bad before he uses them. He uses what shows up. The delay converts into a better version of the thing you were rushing. The rejection converts into the sharper pitch. The failure converts into the one piece of information you could not have bought at any price. This is the mechanism the rest of this essay teaches. 3 moves, one after the other, that take a raw obstacle and metabolize it into forward motion. See it clearly. Turn it into the task, and where it will not move, convert it into the man. That is the whole machine. And it was not designed at a desk. It was hammered out under a load most men will never carry. Because you should know who wrote those words, and where, or the whole thing stays weightless. Marcus Aurelius did not want the throne. He was drafted into it, groomed, positioned, handed the most powerful office on earth by the men who chose him for it. A burden he accepted the way you accept a duty you cannot decline. And then reality tested the philosophy without mercy. The Antonine Plague swept the empire during his reign, a pestilence that by some accounts killed thousands a day in Rome at its peak, emptying streets, thinning the legions, running for years. On the northern frontier, the Marcomannic Wars ground on across the Danube, campaign after campaign, mud and cold, and the endless logistics of keeping men alive far from home. His own health was poor, his body a constant source of trouble. And he ruled anyway. And then, in the year 175, the betrayal, Avidius Cassius, one of his most trusted generals in the East, declared himself emperor on a false rumor that Marcus had died. The man he had relied on turned against him on the strength of a lie, and underneath the public catastrophes, the private one. He and his wife had somewhere near 13 children. Most of them he buried. Only one son lived to grow up and outlast him. Sit with that arithmetic for a moment before you tell yourself your setback is unusual. Now the crucial part. In the middle of all of it, in a war camp, on campaign, among the tribes on the frontier, he wrote the Meditations. But he did not write a book. That is the thing to understand. He was not composing for readers. There were no readers. The Greek title means, roughly, to himself. These were private notes, orders a man gave his own mind at the end of exhausting days, arguments he had with himself to stay level when everything around him was coming apart. That is why the words land with the weight they do. They were not performed for an audience. They were forged under real load by a man keeping himself honest in the dark. When he tells you what stands in the way becomes the way, he is not selling it. He is surviving on it. One thing directly to you, then we go back to the work. Everything after this point is the method itself. The 3 moves, in order, that you can start running tonight. If you're the kind of man who keeps building when it would be easier and cleaner and more forgivable to quit, the one who stays at the wall while other men walk away calling it wisdom, then this channel is being made for you. Subscribe, so the next one reaches you when you need it and not by accident. That's all. The forged mind exists to hand men like you the tools that were built under pressure. Now, the first move. The first move is perception, and it is the one everyone skips because it looks too simple to matter. Here it is. Name the obstacle, in plain language, at its actual size. No more, no less. You do not do this naturally. When something goes wrong, your mind does not report the fact. Editorializes. It reaches for the biggest available frame. A missed target becomes, I'm falling behind everyone. A hard conversation becomes, he's trying to destroy me. A single bad month becomes, this was never going to work. Notice the machinery there. Every one of those is an amplification. You took a bounded event and inflated it into a catastrophe, and then you tried to respond to the catastrophe you invented instead of the event that actually occurred. You cannot solve a problem you have exaggerated. It's too big now. You made it too big. So here is the practice, and it is meant to be done with your hands, not just in your head. When you're hit, write the obstacle down in one sentence and strip every adjective out of it. No devastating, no impossible, no always. Just the fact. Not the launch was a humiliating disaster that proves I don't belong, but the launch brought in fewer sign-ups than I projected. Not he betrayed me, but he chose differently than I expected. And now this account is gone. Say what happened, and only what happened. Cut the drama the way you'd cut a bad take. Something shifts when you do this, and you'll feel it physically. The obstacle stops growing. It settles back down to its real dimensions, which are almost always smaller and more workable than the version your fear was running. This is not denial. You are not pretending it's fine. You are refusing to let it be bigger than it is. See the thing as it is, at its true size, and for the first time your mind stops screaming and starts doing the one thing it's actually for, which is the next move. Because once you see the obstacle clearly, something becomes visible that the panic was hiding. Every obstacle contains an instruction. It is not just a wall. It is a wall with a door in it. And the door is a specific action the obstacle is demanding of you, one that did not exist and could not have existed before the obstacle showed up. This is the second move, and it is action. Here is the question that unlocks it, and I want you to actually use it. What does this specific obstacle now make possible that wasn't possible before? Not, how do I get back to where I was? That road is closed. Stop mourning it. What does the closed road open? The rejection you just took. Read it again, and it's a map of exactly where your pitch is weak. It just handed you the objection you'll now answer before anyone can raise it. The injury that pulled you out of training. Look closer, and it's pointing straight at the imbalance that caused it. The neglected weakness you'd have kept ignoring right up until it broke you worse. The client who walked exposed the thing in your process that was going to cost you the next 3 clients too. The obstacle didn't just take something, it handed you information you were not going to get any other way. This is what people miss when they hear the obstacle is the fuel and assume it's a metaphor, a nice image to feel better with. It is not only a metaphor, it is literal. The obstacle physically supplies the raw material for your next step, the data, the correction, the direction. Marcus said this too in Book 8, as plainly as he says anything. Just as nature takes every obstacle, every impediment, and works around it, turns it to its purposes, incorporates it into itself, so too a rational being can turn each setback into raw material and use it to achieve its goal. Raw material. That's the whole posture of a builder. He does not wait for good material to arrive. He does not curse the bad. He takes what shows up on the site that day and he builds with it. The blocked road becomes the road because you walk it. So find the action buried in the obstacle and take it today, not when you feel ready. The readiness is on the other side of the move. Now, why does the same setback destroy one man and grow another? Same layoff, same diagnosis, same collapse. One is finished by it, one is forged by it. If the obstacle were the deciding factor, the outcome would be the same for both. It isn't. So the deciding factor is somewhere else. Marcus gives you the image, and it is the one to carry out of this whole essay. In Book 4, he writes of the mind's inward power that turns each obstacle into material for itself and uses it. As a fire masters what falls into it. A small flame would be smothered. But a fire that is really blazing takes in everything and turns it into flame and brightness. Stay with the picture because it's exact. Throw a log on a small flame, a candle, a struggling few sticks, and the log kills it, smothers it, puts it out. Throw that same log onto a fire that is genuinely blazing, and the fire doesn't just survive the log, it seizes it, consumes it, roars higher because of it. Same log, same wind, opposite result. And the difference is not in the log. The difference is in the size of the fire the log fell into. That is the entire thing. The obstacle in front of you is neutral, a log, no more. Whether it extinguishes you or feeds you is not decided by the obstacle. It is decided by what you have built inside yourself before it arrived. The reading, the training, the reps of staying level when it would be easier to spin out. Every one of those was you feeding the fire, growing it, so that when the heavy thing finally fell, it landed on a blaze that could take it. This is why the work of building yourself is never separate from the work of building the thing. You are not just accumulating skill. You are building the fire that will decide whether the next setback is fuel or an ending. Build it big enough, and there is nothing life can throw that you do not burn brighter for. But you are an honest man, so let's be honest. Some walls do not move. You can see them perfectly. You can take every right action, and the thing still will not yield. Because it was never inside your power to change. The market that vanished. The diagnosis that is what it is. The person who is gone and is not coming back. If the method stopped at turn it into the task, it would be a lie for exactly the moments that hurt most. So here is the third move, and it has two parts. The first the Stoics called the reserve clause. You act fully, completely, holding nothing back. But you hold the outcome loosely. You throw everything into the throw, and you release your grip on where it lands, because the landing was never yours. This is not half effort. It is the opposite. It's the only thing that lets you give full effort to a thing you cannot control without being destroyed when it goes the way it goes. And when the outcome does go against you, the second part takes over. The will. The discipline of enduring what genuinely cannot be changed. Without bitterness, without the poison, not gritting your teeth and hating it, something stranger and stronger. The emotional target Marcus kept setting for himself was to welcome what fate assigns. To meet even the thing you did not want as your material, the exact circumstances you were given to work with, and no other. Now, hear the guardrail, because this is where the counterfeit sneaks in. This is not giving up dressed in philosophy. The sequence is not optional. You exhaust the action first. You find the door, you take it, you do everything the obstacle actually demanded. Only when you have genuinely reached the edge of what you can change do you convert what remains into character. Endurance is not the first resort of a man looking for permission to quit. It is the last discipline of a man who has already done everything and now must carry what's left. Do it in that order, and it is strength, Do it out of order, and it's just surrender with a Roman accent. Which means we have to name the fakes directly, because this idea gets stolen constantly, and the theft is what makes men distrust it. So let me draw the lines hard. This is not toxic positivity. Marcus is not telling you the setback is secretly good, or that the pain isn't real. He buried his children. He grieved them. Nothing in his notes pretends that didn't cost him. The claim is narrower and tougher than any silver lining. Not that the loss is good, but that your response to the loss is yours. Anyone who tells you to just be grateful for the wall is selling something Marcus never said. This is not the lone wolf pose either. The cold performance of needing no one, trusting no one, standing apart as if isolation were strength. That is the exact opposite of the man who wrote these words. Marcus was relentlessly communal. He wrote that what brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. And when Cassius, the general who rose against him, was killed by his own officers, Marcus reportedly refused even to look at the man's severed head and ordered it buried. He treated the revolt as an occasion for clemency rather than slaughter, asking the Senate to spare Cassius's supporters. That is what the philosophy produces at full strength. Not contempt, mercy where he could give it. A hardness that comes out as generosity, not as a sneer. And it is not hustle. It is not motion mistaken for meaning, grinding for the sake of grinding. Marcus's tone is austere and dutiful, never entrepreneurial. There is no crush it anywhere in him. One honest flag, because honesty is the whole point here. Famous phrase, "the obstacle is the way," is not a sentence Marcus wrote. It's a modern compression, the title of Ryan Holiday's book. Built faithfully on Book 520, the idea is real, and it's stoic. But the actual words are the ones I gave you. What stands in the way becomes the way. When someone hands you a quote, check whether it's his mouth or theirs. That discipline, wanting the real thing over the convenient thing, is the same discipline the whole method is asking of you. And now, the turn that changes what all of this was for. Because up to here, it sounds like a set of tactics for protecting your project. Clever moves to keep the company alive, the body intact, the work on track. But go one level down. What if the project was never the point? Consider it seriously. Company, the physique, the book, the thing you are pouring yourself into. You have been treating it as the goal, and the obstacles as threats to the goal. But watch what the obstacles are actually doing to you while you fight them. Each one demands a version of you that didn't exist yet. The setback that forced you to stay calm built a man who can stay calm. Betrayal that forced you to keep your integrity built a man whose integrity holds under fire. The long grind with no applause built a man who no longer needs the applause. The obstacle wasn't attacking your project. It was manufacturing the person capable of carrying it. You wanted the summit. But look at what the mountain was doing the entire climb. It was building the legs. Take the summit away and hand it to you by helicopter, and you'd stand on top the same man who left the bottom, unequal to the height, with nothing in you that the climb was supposed to put there. The summit was never the prize. The legs were the prize. The mountain knew that. You didn't yet. This is the deepest layer of what Marcus meant when he spoke of welcoming what fate assigns. Not resignation, but recognizing your actual circumstances as the exact material you were given to be shaped by. Not the circumstances you'd have chosen. These ones. Specific obstacles in your specific life are the specific forge for the specific man you're becoming. This is the line between a striver and a builder. The striver wants the thing and resents everything in the way of it. The builder understands that the resistance is the point, that the thing in the way is not delaying the work of becoming who he's meant to be. Is the work. So come back to the wall, the one that's actually in front of you right now. Not a metaphor, the real one, the thing you were carrying when you started listening. You were taught it was the end of the road. Look at it again now. It is not the end of the road. It is the road. The path itself runs directly through it, and there is no version of forward that goes around. And it is more than the road. It is the chisel. It is the instrument cutting you into the shape of the man who can hold what you're building, and it cannot do that work from a distance. It has to press. It has to hurt a little. That's the pressure doing its job. You don't need it to be easier. You don't need it gone. You needed exactly this. A resistance real enough to build against. A weight heavy enough to make you strong. A wall solid enough that getting through it would change who you are. You were looking for the thing that would forge you. It's been standing in front of you this whole time. You just called it an obstacle. Name it plainly. Find the door in it. And where there is no door, carry it without bitterness, and let it make you. The wall is not in your way. The wall is the way.